And welcome to the Talon Outdoor Show. I'm JD. He's not Charlie.
I'm Fred, and he's not Charlie.
And I'm Captain Paul Tyre.
And I'm Grant, and Charlie's still not here.
Yeah, so I get up this morning to a text message and said something about Charlie going, had a psychiatric exam or something, which I've been advocating for years. And
then we got one later that said, well, I might be there by 4. She's only going to ask a couple of questions.
Yeah, right.
I got a feeling somewhere.
Could take an hour.
Yeah.
I got a feeling somewhere in the world is that little white bus with two fellers in white suits with a big old dip net chasing Charlie around right now.
He's running through the forest and the meadows and chasing butterflies. I mean, chances are he failed the exam on the first question.
Yeah, well, anyway, hopefully he will show up by the end of the show, but we kind of had to record today because I definitely can't be here tomorrow, and you couldn't either, and I don't know about Captain Paul. He's probably going to be catching fish tomorrow, and Grant, I don't know about you either. But anyway, we're here. It'll be all right. We'll make, I got Fred here. Fred brought them with a handful of stack of papers.
Well, I wasn't going to have Charlie talking the whole time, so I knew I had to say something.
I appreciate it. Helps me out. I'm the color guy. I'm the guy that adds ad-libs, one-liners to the, that picks on everything. I'm not normally the guy that does all the talking. So, I got to be prompted.
Thinking about this psychiatric exam he's got going, I'm wondering who is going to need psychiatric help, either Charlie or the examiner.
I got a feeling the examiners, when they're done, is probably going to go have a stiff drink somewhere.
You think they're going
at the first bar that she goes by?
Either that or an AA meeting.
One or the other.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's been some interesting developments in the legal world as far as court decisions, and you want to talk about that? Something up in Chicago, I think. I
try to keep up with this stuff. I mean, the law is changing constantly all the time. The appellate courts get in there, and especially when it comes to constitutional law, the Supreme Court had a lot of landmark cases this year, and in 2022. Well, let's go back to 2008. 2008 was the Heller decision,
right?
Which was a big deal for
individual gun rights.
Individual gun rights. That it finally recognized that that comma right there
means everybody.
Yeah, that means everybody.
All inclusive.
It's kind of like a whereas clause in a contract. Whereas these two parties want to buy a car, and whereas the buyer likes a car, whereas the seller wants. That doesn't control the language of the contract. It gives a reason for the contract. And it's not an exclusive list of you could have a number of reasons, and they don't all have to be stated. And that's the way that was.
It says it is what it is.
Right. So it says a well-regulated militia being necessary for the. I don't have the text, but comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And so the meat of the Second Amendment is the part after the comma. The part prior to the comma is just. Here's a reason that we're going to do this.
Here's a reason, not the only reason.
Correct. And that's Heller finally, and of course, I think we had some dissents in that opinion, which tells you the mentality of some federal judges. But so that we had that case. Mm-hmm. All right, so you got a right to, you keep and bear arms in Heller, and that extends to the people. Well, then in New York City, Manhattan in particular, they said, you got a right to keep and bear arms, but we can regulate it, which they can. That's not really in dispute. The government can regulate constitutional rights. They just got to have a real good reason to do it. And you had it in New York where I think they called it a proper cause. You had to show proper cause in order to be able to get a pistol.
Right. They even have a permit to own a pistol.
We're not
talking about carrying it outside your house or carrying it into public. We're talking about ownership.
Yeah, and I believe Heller dealt with the same kind of issue there. That was a security guard, I think Heller was, who lived in Washington, D.C.
Yep.
And he couldn't even keep a gun in his house.
Yeah.
So here we're talking about to own a gun, have a gun, be in possession of a gun, and own a gun. Pistol in New York City, and that was the case with Bruin. And he couldn't show that he had a death threat or a guy standing outside his house ready to kill him, so they wouldn't give him a permit.
Right. In fact of the matter, before we get into that, in New York City, a lot of people that didn't have any proper cause or justifiable cause, were getting gun permits because of their last name or who they knew down at City
Right.
Hall. And so we had a lot of that going on historically up there as well.
Nepotism type stuff,
Right.
and favoritism and corruption, and I'll contribute
To your campaign,
your
and
campaign
but I want to carry a permit.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of that happening up there. So they were giving it to people that knew somebody, not giving it to Joe Citizen that needed it for home protection or whatever.
So Bruin comes in and says, this is Supreme Court, and this is in 2022, and Bruin comes in and says, no, we're going to set forth a test to determine whether or not a firearm regulation is constitutional. And boy, did they open up a can of worms. So it's a two-pronged test, and so I'll read it to you, and then I'll interpret it in redneck language so that we can all get on the same page.
Thank God.
So, so here's what it says. Here's the two-step test. This is from the Bruin, and it doesn't really change Heller. It expounds upon Heller.
Mm-hmm.
So, on any other, if you take the Bill of Rights and any constitutional, like the right to speech, religion, Fifth Amendment, Fourth Amendment regulations, search seizure, there's no reported case thus far on the Third Amendment. Although if the election doesn't go our way, there might be.
Housing troops.
Yeah. So what they do is they say, when the Second Amendment's plain text covers an individual's conduct, we'll get to that in just a second, the Constitution presumptively protects that conduct. To justify its regulation, the government may not simply posit that the regulation promotes an important interest. Rather, the government must demonstrate that the regulation is consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. All right, so somewhere in there's a two-pronged test. All right, so part one. All right, does this regulation cover an individual's conduct with respect to firearms? And in this case that just came out of Chicago, Illinois, federal judge Ian D. Johnston, who has a very broad lexicon and would be a verbose individual that loves three-syllable words and more. You almost have to sit there with a thesaurus to read this thing. So he's quoting out of Bruin here, but this is a case where this guy Schoenthal and a couple of others have concealed carry permits.
Okay.
All right, which you can get in Illinois.
Okay.
Hard to get, but you can get them. So they have concealed carry permits, and in comes a regulation in Illinois that says, all right, you can't carry concealed on any property that the government has a proprietary interest in. So in other words, if we contribute money to the transit system, we fund it. Mm-hmm. We got a proprietary interest, and therefore we can regulate firearms and prevent you from carrying your concealed
on the bus,
on the train,
right?
That kind of thing. So they challenged that law. Now, bear in mind that apparently they had been carrying it before. Yep. They just came in. And of course, Kimberly Fox, that Attorney General in Illinois that we all know and love, is defending this thing and makes some of the craziest arguments that you could ever seen made. But so we start with this test. Does this regulate conduct within the meaning of the Second Amendment? Well, clearly it does. You want to carry the gun
with you on public transportation,
right? So yeah, you got it. Now, what happens next is the burden shifts to the government to determine whether that regulation is, and here's the second prong, consistent with this nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation.
Probably not.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there has been historically, we have in states that are free, we have had the right to carry a gun with us in places other than highly restricted places, intakes, jails, police stations, that kind of stuff, kind of like Florida's doing it right now. So.
Well, this is a 50-page opinion, so we'll have to cover it on the break after the break.
Yeah, we'll be right back. And we're back. So we're talking about the recent court decision up in Illinois. So Fred, where you left off was we've discussed part of it, and there's been a history lately when the certain states that have had very strict gun laws, they've been doing things since the Heller decision to end run the Heller decision to try to limit it back again, because the Heller decision really broadened our gun rights.
Yeah, if you want to boil it down to a sentence as to what Heller held, it's quoted in this opinion. What Heller did was it codified the Second Amendment, and it guaranteed, and I'll quote, the right to possess and carry weapons in case of confrontation.
Yep.
Okay, that's
the
all.
Ability to defend yourself with a gun.
So that is right. Yeah, ability to defend yourself with a gun. So confrontation, self-defense, interchangeable. Right. So that's what that did. Now, then we get into this. Well, what about this historical tradition? How do we figure that out? And so the court goes on to this court. They're applying the Bruin case, and this guy does a real good job of doing it. And he says, yeah, okay, well, what does this mean, this historical regulation? Where does that come from? Are you supposed to go back and say, all right, well, what was the law in place in 1791 when the Second Amendment was written? Well, yeah, you could, but, I mean, there wasn't any regulations about firearms on airplanes in 1791. There certainly wasn't any regulation about stadiums or movie theaters. They didn't have those.
Right.
So how do you do that? And so there they say you can look at the law in place, or you can find what they call an analog, which would be a law analogous to something would be in place. So they call that an analog.
All
right. So what they do is the way it works is if you challenge the law, it is then incumbent upon the government defending the law to come in and show some analogs. Here's some analogs. Here's what Ms. Fox does. The first analog she comes up with is the Statute of Northampton, which was enacted in 1321 under King Edward.
Little reach there.
Yeah, it goes a little bit. And did they even have guns in 1320?
Yeah, they might have had matchlocks.
Maybe a musket of some sort.
Hand cannon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hand cannon.
Okay, I wasn't around. So, they had a general ban on public carry, I guess, in the Statute of Northampton, and the court says, we're not going to go with medieval times. We're medieval laws. We don't like those.
Medieval folks didn't either too much, probably.
Yeah, and then
they didn't want them carrying guns.
Yeah, and then they come up with these other Reconstruction era statutes, and then they start talking about stagecoaches and all this stuff. And so finally comes around to saying, look, you haven't shown, and they cite the Black Act. I didn't know about the Black Act. Yeah, this was 1723 in Great Britain, where it was illegal to go through the forest armed with a mask on. Could be
Robin Hood.
Robin Hood.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Robin Hood.
I mean,
I
think
that was
on that.
I think Robin Hood was a little earlier than that, but
that's
could have been his grandson.
That's when I was if I'd have been the attorney on this, I'd have said, ma'am, do you know what we did to the British when they told us we couldn't have guns? We shot them with them, and we kicked them out of our country. But
well, I think this judge is trying to say that in a way that she can't understand it. So if he eventually comes around to say, look, I'm going to go through all of these analogs because the Supreme Court has said I got to do this. And he writes 50 pages.
He gave her something to read right back because he had to go read all that stuff.
And so when I walk away from this, I'm like, I just spent 2 hours dissecting this opinion and reading some of the stupidest analogs I could possibly read. So I think Bruin would rightly be characterized as a great outcome, but probably the best way to describe it is the Appellate Lawyers Relief Act, because it's got stuff for us to argue until we die. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things they did talk about in this case was the sensitive places doctrine. I think
and we understand that, and like Florida law says, you can't carry your gun even if you're licensed to carry concealed, or now that you don't have to be licensed to carry concealed. There are places we can't carry our guns. We can't carry into police stations. We can't carry into receiving facilities. We can't carry like the jail or the hospital where they take mental patients in, and places like the courthouse. But those are sensitive areas, and understandably so.
So here's this with respect to that. This kind of gives you the idea of what the anti-gun crowd is.
Right.
This is how they go about this. So, and this guy's pretty critical. And Justice Thomas, who I like, wrote the decision in Bruin, but boy did he leave open up a can of worms. And this guy's kind of critical of him. And this is a district judge writing this. Bruin then turned this unremarkable use of the word sensitive into its own vehicle of analogical reasoning. And then he goes on for 5 pages talking about that. And they never defined what sensitive places are. Now,
Well, and nobody's ever challenged it to my knowledge. I don't think in Florida there's been a challenge, or in Alabama. I don't know that there's been a challenge to any of those sensitive places.
well, the court in Bruin and Heller both listed examples of what sensitive places are. But they even say in the Bruin decision, they flat out say, although we have no occasion to comprehensively define sensitive places. In other words, we're not going to tell you what they are,
right?
Nor are we going to give you the framework of what they are.
Which is they leave the door open.
Right. Now the left argued that a sensitive place is going to be any place where people typically congregate and where law enforcement and other public safety professionals are presumptively available.
That's public. That's
public.
Yeah.
So, and they were trying to argue that Manhattan was a sensitive place. And
well, maybe they are.
One of the
I was
things
going to say,
they just might be.
there are places with sensitive people there.
Yeah.
Who probably
well, for a time, Fred, correct me if I'm wrong, in Florida, state parks and federal national parks were both prohibited places to have a firearm.
Right.
Which I know that got overturned in Florida, and as far as federal national parks, those were both overturned where you can carry now. In the
There's
places.
a discussion in this opinion of that because they were Fox tried to argue that if the state owned property, that they could govern it just like a private person owned property.
No, because we as citizens of
Correct.
the state own that property,
And-
not the government.
and this
The government
judge-
doesn't own anything. They don't produce anything. They just regulate things.
And this judge, he kind of put her in her place on that. Saying something along the lines. Apparently, she didn't read the law back in 17.
Yeah.
It's been the law since time immemorial. And,
Right.
you can't go tell somebody they give up their constitutional rights when they come in a public place.
Speaking of that, I had an interesting question yesterday from somebody, and they said, "Well, I don't want to buy a suppressor for my gun because if I get a suppressor and I get a tax stamp, then the ATF can come knock on my door at 3:00 in the morning and search my house and ask for my tax stamp and all this other stuff." And I said, "No, they absolutely cannot. You can't give up your Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment rights. You can't give up you're not giving up your constitutional rights by paying a tax on an item that is taxable by the government."
So in order to search your home, they would have to have, a warrant.
Correct.
Which demonstrates probable cause to believe that you have committed a crime or in the process or about to commit a crime.
Right.
And that just because you own something that's licensed by the government does not give the government a license to come on your property and inspect it.
Right. Well, that's exactly the correction that I gave them yesterday. I said, and I don't really know where that started. Somebody started, that's FUD-lore, we call it, or folklore, across the gun counter FUD-lore that we get all the time. Well, if you buy that and you get a tax stamp and you get that item, then they can come to your house and ask to see your paperwork.
Yeah.
No, this is not Nazi Germany where you show your papers.
All they got to do is look at the doormat on my front door. It specifically states come back with a warrant. And,
right. And we kind of had some discussion about that before we start the show. Is people you need to know your rights are, and you need to stand up for them. You absolutely need to stand up for them, and don't let the government push you around and bully you into doing something that they don't have the right to do, because that does happen in today's world.
Well, let me put a caveat on that. Just I agree with you 100%. You should use your rights, just like when a cop tells you you have a right to remain silent. You should probably use
absolutely do that. Yeah.
But there's a difference between asserting your rights and crossing a line. And typically, I mean, there's what's that Chris Rock video, how not to get your what beat by the police. You know, when you get out and start cussing,
weed.
yeah,
You got weed. Got weed.
When you get out and start cussing out the cop and calling his mother names, you probably got a butt whooping coming to you. So, I mean, the way you handle it is, officer, I'd love to talk to you about that. I really prefer to talk to my lawyer. So right now, I'm just, can you come back at a later time?
Yeah,
that kind of
I'm
thing.
not saying be disrespectful or violent or any of that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's just know the ground you're standing on, and that's the same thing. I get people ask me about these some of this less than lethal devices that are on the market right now, and I said, you're probably more prone to commit a crime with a pepper ball launching device, because you don't think of it as use of any kind of force. Well, it wouldn't hurt you. Well, if you launch a projectile and you hit me because we're having an argument, you have committed an aggravated assault.
Sure.
You're not likely to shoot me in that situation, but you might shoot me with a pepper ball, and that's one of the things that you got to know the ground you're standing on, and be aware of that. And we have the resources to help you with that. So we'll be right back. And we're back. So this is the Dothan segment, or the South Alabama, North Florida, the not for Tallahassee audience segment.
So if you're close to Georgia,
yeah, it's opening day of dove season.
Day of dove season. Our neck of the woods is supposed to rain.
Yeah, we're gonna get a lot of this. There's some kind of front out there or something. We got that pressure system coming in, low pressure system, whatever, going supposedly.
And what
rain
scares
a bunch,
me,
so
if it's going to rain on Saturday.
Yep.
Well, here's the thing. I know you've been in a dove field in the rain before.
Yeah.
What does it do to the dove? It slows them down, makes them easier to hit.
Yeah.
Well, you might have a chance to kill a limit, Fred.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna get to go. You invited me, and I wish I could go, and I'm kind of disappointed. But I'm gonna be over in Foley, Alabama, watching my baby girl play soccer all weekend. So that's all right.
So
There'll be other dove seasons. Dove
I'm
hunts.
taking Dad in your place. So
Okay.
I'm gonna make him pay.
Well, of course. You probably was gonna make me pay too, wasn't you?
I will.
Okay, just get that squared away. But
yeah, so he called. You think they'll give me a senior discount? I'm like, what? A senior discount for dove? Damn if they didn't do it. I mean,
that's awesome.
And,
I got gray hair. You reckon I can pull that
you
off?
might be able to pull off. I mean, you got to be able to grunt when you talk.
I do.
Yeah.
Well, Matt's going up to the Dothan location this weekend, and we're going to take a bunch of bulk. We've got a lot of shotgun shells. We bought several pallets of shotgun shells, bird shells, hunting shells. So he's going to be taking a bunch of bulk ammo up there for the Dothan people. I don't know when Alabama dove season. I don't know if it comes in this weekend too. I know Georgia and Alabama come in before Florida. We're usually a month behind them, and I don't know what.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they do come in before. I know they come in before Florida.
Yeah, I think they may come in. It may come in up there this weekend too. I hadn't checked because I don't hunt in Alabama, so at least not to where I don't dove hunt in Alabama. But
I hunted in Texas once in December.
man, I went on a hunting trip out to Texas with my brother several years back, and we were out in Hondo, which I thought was kind of cool that I was in Hondo, Texas, because you think Hondo, you think Old West, and it was a cool place. And we shot white wings, all white wings, no mourning dove, all white wing dove.
Oh,
and
yeah.
man, you talk about
Those are the big ones.
They're bigger, they're faster, and they're acrobatic as all get out. When they turn and cut and do things that mourning dove just don't do. So it's a challenging. If they weren't so big, it would be a really challenging target. So
yeah, but they are so good. I mean,
they are delicious, man. How do you cook yours? You do the poppers?
Yeah, so I do my poppers. So here's you take my marinades: Italian dressing, Worcestershire, cloves, lemon juice, a little bit of red wine, white pepper, a little bit of Cavender's. And mix all that up and soak and breast out your dove. I take the bone out.
Yep.
Then marinate them in that. Then take your jalapeno pepper, get your seeds out, cream cheese, put all that inside the breast, wrap it up in bacon, throw it on the green egg, 7 minutes on each side. So if you want to transcribe that and write it down, that's
Fred's
the,
jalapeno dove breast.
that is the.
I take them and breast them out. I marinate mine, and I'm for the fast lane. I get the Kraft Italian dressing, zesty Italian Kraft dressing, that and orange juice and lemon juice.
Very similar.
And you'll almost get an acid cook on the dove, and it breaks it down really nice. And then I do the cream cheese, and for the people in the house that don't like jalapenos, I love jalapenos, but the girls don't.
I put a ghost pepper in mine sometimes.
But that gets somebody's attention.
We had a ghost pepper challenge when I was in college.
Yeah.
Who lasted the longest without drinking some milk?
Yeah.
I won.
Yeah.
15 minutes.
15 minutes? Yeah. Wow. But no, I do that, grill them, wrap them in bacon, and cook them on the grill basically, and
same deal.
Crisp that bacon up, man.
You can take any game bird, soak it in a salt water overnight, and that will loosen it up and take some of the gamey out of it so the women will eat it.
Yep.
And that's a good way to do it.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm ready to go. I got invited next Friday to go up and hunt. So I'm hoping I get to go, man. I'm ready for it. We got some cool weather coming.
Yeah,
it's getting to be that time of year when
we'll start bringing them down on the head of those fronts. And,
yep.
And I see them come. I saw some on the golf course yesterday. I just started salivating. I had to get a handkerchief out.
It messes up your grip. Yeah. We'll be right back. Man, we're back. Did I do that right?
Yep.
And we're back.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I can't quite hit them low notes.
And
like
we're
Charlie.
back.
There you go.
And we're back.
So you're talking about those the demobilizing burners, whatever those things are.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's more than just that one on the market. There's a lot of the projectile launching devices on the market. And first of all, you gotta understand that pepper gas. Most the burner uses burners, and some of these others, pepper ball. There's different ones out there that use oleoresin capsaicin, better known as pepper spray or pepper gas. That's really only effective, according to studies. Only about 80% of the population is affected by pepper spray or pepper gas or pepper whatever. There's about 20% of the population that it really doesn't have much of an effect on. So that's problem number one with it. Problem number two, and the biggest problem I see, is people using that device or any of those devices improperly. Because, like I said, just because you're having a conflict with somebody, if it hasn't risen to the level of self-defense, I worry about people pulling out their pepper ball gun or whatever brand. I'm not going to beat on any particular brand. Pulling out some type of a weapon, introducing a weapon into an argument that should be just a lively discussion, and brandishing this weapon of any kind. Well, then you have an assault there. If you're not justified in pulling that object out, you've got an assault. If you actually use it without being justified in doing it, you're just like with a firearm. If you pull a firearm out and you point at somebody, that's a pretty simple, clear-cut case of assault, right, Fred? Sure. Unless you have a reason to pull the firearm out, and you
reasonable, justifiable fear of imminent serious bodily harm.
Great bodily harm or death.
Right.
So that's what gives us justification to use deadly force. Well, people have it in their mind, well, this ain't a gun, and it's not going to hurt anybody. If I actually shoot them with it, it's not going to hurt anybody. If you have that stuck in the back of your mind, so you need to, if you're going to carry those things, you need to think of it as a firearm, because you're going to get just as much trouble pointing that at somebody as if you pointed a firearm at them, and you've got a device that's not going to be nearly as effective as a firearm.
About the only thing it do is get you out of 10, 20 life.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's people that say, well, I don't know that I'd actually shoot anybody with a gun. Well, then you probably don't need a gun.
You don't need a gun.
But you also probably don't need that other thing either.
No, because I'll give you a perfect example. I mean, it applies to me over the weekend. I don't know about y'all, but over the summer, kids tend to leave the door open. You get these black flies coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm at a store a couple of years ago. I found this salt gun.
Oh, yeah. Assault rifle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Shoot salt.
And it is so much fun.
It's a bug-killing machine, buddy.
It's a bug-killing machine. And I sit in the kitchen. I go in there just specifically to kill flies. And so the kitchen counter, the wife had a couple of candles. And I love it when they land on the candle because you get it right up there. It's a good aiming spot. And I'm talking to my son as I'm spending Saturday killing flies, which is it's very entertaining for me, but nobody else.
Have you shot your wife with it yet, just out of curiosity?
Well, I'm getting there.
Okay.
I was up, early in the morning, Saturday morning. I don't have to go to work. I get to kill flies. So I'm in the kitchen. She comes out of, bathroom, got a bathrobe on, just brush her teeth, getting ready, making the coffee, and that fly landed right there on that candle. And I wasn't looking at her. I was looking at that fly. And I let loose on that fly. And not only did she get hit with the salt, the fly landed on her cheek. And so,
do you still play with the gun?
Did she break your toy? Did she take your toy away from you, Fred?
I can't find it. I looked all over the house last night, and I've got an idea where it's hidden. But I spent better part.
Now, I would think that it would be great sport if you had one. I don't know how strong those things are. I don't have one.
It was strong enough to make her madder than a hornet.
Well, what you do is you wait when she's not looking and you hike that bathrobe up and hit her right in the hiney with that thing.
And then you call your divorce lawyer.
I expect you know somebody.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I don't think the best one in town will get me out of that one. But she is a lawyer, man.
I know.
It would just be mean. To me.
I would do that to my wife, but then again, she would get me back. So we play like that sometimes.
Yeah.
The whole wet towel popping them, and
Oh no! What I like to do is wait till she gets in the shower and then grab the cold water and throw.
Oh yeah, that's a great.
That's also a very
that
endearing. It just ensures that when you go to bed on Saturday night, there's going to be action.
Not necessarily
Not
the good
one
kind.
You wanted, but there's going to be some action.
Yeah, it's just like, you go ahead and go to sleep, honey. I know you're tired. You go ahead and go to sleep.
I'm sitting there. It's like a cartoon where the eyes are getting big and you can't sleep because.
It's like I tell Ma, I said, I will get you back for that. You won't know when, but I will get you back for whatever it is. And then she's constantly, we do the jump scares at our house. My kids are just, my kids pie every corner in the house. When they're getting ready to go around the corner or go into a room or whatever, they're using all kind of SWAT tactics because they know those too. They're pieing the corner, peeking around that corner because Daddy's usually waiting around there somewhere to jump out and scare them. And we go to great lengths to startle each other. Hey, look at there. We're back. And we're back.
Back from the psychiatric exam.
They let you go from the psychiatric.
Did you tell everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. We were painting a picture of you running around and a couple of guys in white suits chasing you with a big net. So
normally when you go, they make you take that fill in the bubble test.
MMPI,
the newer version of it. Yeah.
Do you like flowers?
Yeah. Do you look at your own poop? That kind of thing. I remember the first time they asked me that. I'm like,
what? Well, yeah, you got to check, make sure.
I don't remember how.
Why wouldn't you?
Anyway, so I went in and they said, you remember the fill in the bubble test? I said, yes, sir. He goes, we're not giving that. I said, he goes, I have something better. He goes, I'm going to say some words and you need to remember them. I'm I'm not going to pass this. So it was because I'm I'm terrible with short term memory. I can't remember names. I can't remember anything. And he goes, okay, so face, velvet, church, red, and daisy. And that was 35, 40 minutes ago.
He was paying
I
attention.
remember him.
You were paying attention.
Oh man, I'm going okay. Face.
Oh, you're trying to
And he's
remember
got
the-
facial hair, feels like velvet. Okay, so
You failed.
He didn't
You
shave. He didn't shave.
You
He didn't
failed.
shave because he went to church. You know, it's a redneck church, and they he didn't go because the wife told him if he didn't go, he's gonna be pushing up daisies. Okay, I got it in my head now. And then he asked me like a minute or two later to say it, and I got him right, and then. I said, whew. So I just pushed him out of my head and went on with the rest of the stuff. And he goes, okay, what were those words I said? I'm like, really? Man.
Oh, he pulled one of those on you.
Oh, but it was.
You think Biden would have passed that?
Oh boy.
Biden wouldn't have passed the conversation to get to that point. And anyways, like, hey, what is this? And what is this? And what is this a picture of? And I answered. I almost messed up on a camel because it was, anyway.
Every time they
I don't
give
know.
me,
I was thinking llama because of Fred. And
I gotta go meet later.
It ain't got a rope on it, so.
Boy.
every time they give me one of those tests and they ask me what that is, and I get kicked out of the place, charged with obscenity or something.
It was.
Yeah.
I got to draw some stuff, and
Oh,
it was. Someone, have you ever been? Nah, and I wanted to.
Drew a
Oh, and they
picture.
asked for somebody close to you that we can call and talk to, and I said, well, there's JD, but he ain't gonna answer the phone right now because he's doing what I want to do. He goes, what? You know, gave him, rolled the dice, gave him my wife's number, except I couldn't remember the phone number. My phone was dead, so I'm like, so he's gonna call me here in a minute and ask for a phone number. I got to call her and go, hey,
Oh, Lord.
you need to hush all that mess. I know you're going to
No,
say.
you don't want to send them to me, Charlie. I'm just saying. I mean,
Yeah. What segment are we in?
We're in the third
segment, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
we
cool.
have. We have.
We were talking about shooting our wives with salt guns, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
throwing
All kind
cold
of fun
water
stuff.
on them, and
I'll listen to the show when I do the YouTube thing, but
yeah.
sorry, I was trying to push everything. He
we
goes, what
actually-
kind of mood are you in?
we
I said, I
actually-
feel a little rushed. I'm supposed to be somewhere else.
We actually covered a lot of ground with some recent court decisions. So
Yeah.
anyway,
yeah,
it's all good stuff.
It was a
we were
lively
talking about
discussion.
we're right now kind of in the middle of talking about some of the less lethal devices on the market and how it'd be really easy to misuse those without without cause just because you're angry. So not a good idea. But
Yeah.
anyway, we missed you. We're glad you're back. So now you get a
Don't
chance
talk
to
to
talk.
anybody in this church,
Not
school
yet.
shooting.
Not yet.
Not
I'll
yet.
be right back.
And we're back.
We're back.
Yeah, I forgot.
There
It's my
it is.
turn. Yeah.
We made fun of that.
Hey,
too
did y'all
when
talk
you-
about the seminar we're doing
No.
coming up on October the 15th and 16th? Okay, we haven't announced this, put anything out on it because we're trying to get the location nailed down. Waiting on the first of the week, we should have, talking to Andy, we're probably going to have a church locked down. If not, then we'll find another one. We're going to do it not here at the shop, but it's a church safety active shooter deal, and we have Stephen Williford coming back
Oh, cool.
from
Right,
Summerlin
yeah.
Springs Church. It's been on our show before. That was the barefoot hero, the guy running down the street shooting the guy with the AR-15 that had shot up at church and killed all those people.
When's he coming?
He's October the 15th and 16th. We're going to do 2 seminars with Right to Bear at a local church to be named. It'll be probably from 6 to 8-ish in the evenings. That's a Tuesday and Wednesday night. And we need to do it off big because you don't get an opportunity to meet that man in person and talk to him in person. We have, but he's I think it'll be a good event. We're
Yeah.
going to sponsor it. Right to Bear is going to sponsor. Not sure who's going to do the actual lecture portion of it yet, but just suffice to say, this will be a good one. Y'all need to put on your calendars either the 15th or the 16th of October. We'll be sending out emails to everybody and putting it on our Facebook account, and then there'll be Right to Bear advertisements and stuff.
Be awesome.
And I don't think there's any fee for it or anything like that. So it's an opportunity to do something really cool. Remember how many people we have at that one we did with sponsor?
Golly, I don't know. It was
like 600 people, I
Yeah,
think,
wow.
at that one.
The one we did at the Antique Car Museum filled up that big old room out there. There was
That was
standing-
just because Preston pushed it so hard for us.
Yeah.
So it was me, you, and Preston doing that one, and that one went off big time.
Yeah, I think that's the most people I ever stood up in front of and talked in my life. to date.
It was a bunch. We filled every chair in that car museum.
Yeah,
I mean,
like I said, it was
a big
standing
event.
room only for sure.
Yeah.
And people have been begging us to do it again. We just, I don't know, life gets in the way. We get busy, so
Well,
Still
good.
got the
this will be good.
Batmobile out there?
I don't know. It wasn't out there.
Oh, it wasn't
It was
there.
in their meeting room at the
okay.
car museum. But we're gonna do it in the church this time, probably. So,
Probably
Anyway.
don't have Batmobile.
Paul, you been catching any fish? We
It's-
got to get you some time.
I'll tell
here.
you guys, it's been a little bit slow this week with this east wind, but we got some weather coming in. I'm excited about this rain. I'm excited about this little bit cooler weather coming, and they're going to start turning on. So I'm looking forward to the new season.
Yeah, it's fixing to change.
Dove season's
It's
open
gonna
this
change
weekend. I think you're going dove hunting, Fred. You going dove hunting, Charlie?
It's not starting in
Florida.
Florida
It'd be
yet.
another
I think
month.
it's towards
Another
the end of
month for Florida?
September. I will tell you what, though, Paul. There's enough dove. I went out there the other evening. I drove around the field the other day where I had some millet planted, and I hadn't mowed it or anything. And on the side by side, and there had to have been over 100 dove got up in this little the corner of this little 2-acre patch. Just
so
got
good,
up,
too.
and I'm like, holy cow! How did that many birds get set down
Wow.
out there?
Well, I got a suppressor for a shotgun. I'm just saying.
Seen
Are you
it.
allowed to hunt over there on that land?
On my land,
Yeah,
did
I'm
I
making
own?
sure.
Nah, he can't.
Can I come?
I think what really was happening is they were stealing your millet seed.
And there's a
And
death penalty
they're
for that.
trespassing.
Yeah.
They're trespassing and stealing your stuff. So I mean,
Well, everywhere
just
we go out
saying,
there and mow, it is nothing but dove everywhere. And
Wow.
we've never had this many dove on our place before, but it's hard to predict. You'll go out there and there won't be but like 300 or 400 sometimes, and
first-
then there's more. No, I'm
the
just kidding.
first phase,
There'll be a few.
the first phase of early dove season usually is your local birds that are
Right.
you're not getting those migratory.
So they know that where the feed is.
They know the feed's there. They live here year round. They're not migratory, even though they're classified as migratory. They don't migrate. Second and third phase is when you get the big flights of migratory birds coming down here. So
Yep.
early phase, I've always found that mowed down corn or corn that's been turned the cows and the hogs in to eat the remaining corn that's been picked or whatever, those and places where you mow a field of bahia seeds, and you got bahia seeds or cut hay on there,
millet.
or millet or things like that. And it's warmer weather, the dove tend to like the smaller seeds. Now, it gets colder, and the peanut fields become a place to go because it's a bigger seed. They
Gotcha.
don't have to work as hard, and they're getting a lot more nutrition. And peanut fields tend to be better for second and third phase of dove season. So,
Yeah, I shot a banded dove once in the first phase of dove season in Wakulla County.
yeah.
Sent the band in.
Wakulla County.
Medart.
Mid-Art. He
Boy, what
done
problem.
been a long way.
bird.
I've killed a few. I've never killed a banded dove. I've killed several banded ducks over the years.
Got a duck in Jefferson County from Maryland once.
I killed a. Me and another guy both shot it. We killed a mallard in Mississippi that had been banded in Saskatchewan, Canada,
Wow.
6 years earlier.
Really?
Wow.
That band had been on that bird for 6 years. It was almost, the numbers were worn down to where you couldn't hardly read it.
I've shot
killed a-
Saskatchewan before.
Yeah.
It's a
Killed a banded wood duck in Lake Jackson a few years ago. It had been banded in Lake Mary, I guess somewhere down in, I looked it up, it's somewhere down
That's
in
down in-
Central Florida
yeah.
somewhere. And it had migrated north. The wood duck
I don't
had-
blame him. If you've ever been in that area, you'd want to go north too.
I wrote a ticket one time to somebody with a Hawaii tag. I'm still trying to figure out how he got over here.
How you reckon?
on a boat.
I saw a
Pretty
Puerto
good.
Rico tag today. I thought the same thing. Well, how in the world did you get that over here?
It might have been one of them James Bond cars.
Yeah, could have been. And then I killed a banded duck one time in Ochese Pond that had been banded in Santee Cooper. In,
Really?
Santee,
South
South
Carolina.
Carolina.
Wow.
Yep. So that's cool. If you kill a banded bird, call it in and find out. It's cool where to.
Did you release him?
No, he was dead.
Eat him.
he was real dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Eat
Oh,
that
yeah.
bird. Put the band on the plate while you're eating the bird.
yeah,
That's
but I had a guy ask me today. Said he's a fishing guide down at the coast, and we're gonna try to put something together with him some point in time. And he goes, "You like to duck hunt?" And I was like, "Man, I love duck hunt. I have duck hunted from Lake Okeechobee to Kansas, and just about everywhere in between that's a hot spot for duck hunting. And he goes, "You don't duck hunt anymore?" And I was like, "I figured out I'm getting old."
Yeah.
And duck hunting's a
That
lot
is
of
a
work.
young man's game.
It is a
Yeah.
young man's sport. And
Paul, you ever think about
Especially if
banding
you get the
bass?
tide wrong down in the flats.
yeah, that broke me from duck hunting altogether. That was my last duck hunting trip. Is
Paul,
when
did
the
you
boat
hear
got-
that story?
Uh-uh.
We'll tell it real quick.
All right,
too.
let's do
Me and Corey and JD gonna go down to the flats and put in down there. Where we put in?
Bottoms Road. Down there.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're gonna put in on JD's mud motor boat. His got the big mud motor on the back. All right, and got the short tail, and we're gonna run down there. And Corey looks at the tide charts.
Because I specifically asked, "Have you checked the tides?" Yeah, man, we're good.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. We're gonna get out there before daylight. Everything's gonna be good. We got incoming tide. Blah 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 blah. We get down there and we go around in the channel, come up there, get up there on the shore. We get the duck decoys out, and we're putting everything out. And JD says, "Man, this doesn't feel. Let me ride this thing out here a little ways and get out here where we don't get caught." And he started riding out there, and there was another group of guys over there too that was in another boat,
All right.
and they're sitting there doing the same thing. And JD got out there about 100 yards, and then couldn't go no more. And the motor wasn't quite running right, so he didn't have really the power to push through it. And me and Corey over there sitting there, we shot a couple birds we watching JD out there the whole time. And all of a sudden, JD gets out of the boat, and he starts trying to walk it through there, and then the tide's going and going. Amazing how fast it leaves. And after a while, I looked at Corey, I said, I reckon we're going to have to walk out there about 500 yards.
By this time, I was a good quarter of a mile
Yeah, we had
walking, pushing the boat.
He was so far we couldn't even hear him cursing.
Yeah.
I mean, and so we finally put the ducks back in the decoy bag, walked over to where there was a channel like 10 feet off of the dadgum shore, set them down, and we set our shotguns down, and we started walking. And, man, we were in waders, and we walked, and we walked, and we walked. And when we finally got out there, it took all three of us to push that big, heavy boat out there into some water. And the whole time, them other boys had never got out their boat. They're just sitting there on dry ground.
Yeah. And by the time we left, they had a boat with a V bottom. Mine was a completely flat bottom, not even any strikers on it. It was a flat bottom boat with a polymer bottom, so it would go, pretty much.
Yeah.
And if I had 4 inches of water, I was in business.
When it was running right.
When it was running right, and I had long story short, I had trash in the carburetor, and it just it didn't want to do right. And
them boys, their decoys are laying over on their side.
Decoys are laying over on the side. Their boats laying over on the side. And we finally got out far enough to get in the boat and crank the motor up and run around to the channel, get out in the channel and drive back up, and
waving
at them.
Y'all have a good day.
See y'all about 8 hours, boys.
Man, we were hurting for
He
a
didn't
while
check
after that.
That tie was different. That chart wasn't right, was it?
No, I got a feeling he didn't even think about it, because I've been down there and done that before at the saltwater at the coast down there, and you better know what the heck you're doing.
Yeah, you got to know them
on
times
some of them
for
places
sure.
down there. You'll get stranded, and I didn't not want to spend the day there. And the first thing I did when I got back to town is when I threw them out, I went straight to the mechanic. I said, "We got to do something about this because this thing's done about killed me today."
I told Corey, I said, we got to go out there. There ain't going to be no living with him. We got to walk out there. Lesson we learned that day is don't let Corey Havard read the tide.
That's right.
Or playing the duck hunt.
Yeah, there you go.
See y'all next week.